Okay, we are going to be starting standing on our mat for stretch and mobility today. My mat is turned the lengthways today, but feel free to face your mat forward and back. So when you stand at the top of your mat, you can see what I'm doing. I did it sideways just for references. I'm gonna go ahead and mute all of you. Oops. Mute. Okay, now we can get started. All right, starting standing at the top of our mats. Feet are about shoulder width apart, hands down by your sides. Just starting in a Tadasana today as a way to find that grounded sensation in our feet and length through the rest of our body, standing up nice and proud and tall. Being able to just relax our shoulders and jaw, but still create that length through our spine and our neck and out the top of our head. Maybe that belly or core tightens just slightly, firms as you find that length. Just looking for an intention always when we practice, whether you have something personal that you look to set an intention for, or stretch and mobility is one of just self-care. Taking this time to take care of your body, make it feel better, and find some openness and space. So let's just take a couple inhales and exhales as we reach our hands out and up overhead, almost like you're stretching. Make this feel really good. And those exhales, bring your hands down by your sides. We're gonna do 5 of these total before we move on. So just nice and slow, that whole breath brings your arms up. And the whole exhale, let those hands float down by your sides. You can even expand a little bit, making this kind of an over-exaggerated circle as you bring those hands up so that your chest starts to broaden. As long as you're moving with that breath here. Last one, inhale, reach nice and tall. Fingertips reach towards the sky. And hands down by your sides. So I want you to take your right hand, place it on your left hip so that your palm is touching that hip. Then you're going to take your left hand, and the back side of your hand is going to reach over to the outside of your opposite hip. So you're kind of twisted in a pretzel here. And then relax those shoulders a little bit. Lengthen your spine. Find a nice smooth breath and try to make this a bit of a stretch. Shoulders are still pointing forward. And then release that, switch your sides. So left palm touches that right hip. The back of your right hand touches your left hip. Again, drop those shoulders a little bit so your neck lengthens. Stand up a little taller. Relax your jaw. And anytime you find yourself kind of holding your breath or creating tension during this practice, just be mindful of that and try to soften that breath. All right, hands down by your side. So we're just gonna find this swinging back and forth. Palms are coming to that same motion on your hips. And just moving as slow or as quick as you want so that you can feel like you're releasing tension. A little bit of bringing out, making this movement a little bit bigger, taking those hips side to side. Now shoulders point over to the right and left as your gaze follows. You can feel this in your feet. Maybe start picking your toes up off the mat. Taking a couple more. And then find stillness. Back, feet shoulder width apart. As you inhale, take your hands out to the sides, palms face down. And on your right hand, bring those fingertips towards your wrist. So it's almost like you're making a fist, but it doesn't have to be a fist. That wrist points down. I'm gonna move a little bit closer so you can see my hands. And then on the left hand, you're gonna take it up the opposite direction. I like to do like little cobra hands here rather than fists, but it's kind of a personal preference. So your hands are opposite directions, and I want you to look towards the fingers that are pointing up. And while you're doing that, lengthen your wrists and the top of your palms towards the outside walls. Bring that chin over. Then you're going to switch which way your fingers are pointing, and your gaze is going to move over to your right fingers since they'll be the ones pointing up. Nice and slow. You're going to switch, move back and forth. Again, use your own space and speed here. Doing this about 10 times total. Just kind of noticing if you feel this in your neck or your shoulders. If you get a spot that catches, kind of take Fallon's rule here where I back out of it a little bit and then continue my gaze towards the same direction, looking to release that tension. Again, watch it if you're holding your breath. Try to breathe smooth and even. And when you're even on both sides, hands can come down by your hips. Take a couple inhales and exhales again. Just wringing out those arms, letting those shoulders move. All right, get those hands to tee off again, those arms. And we're pushing that chest forward. So engage in those hips and glutes. Become really strong in your foundation. Then we're going to push that belly forward and bring those arms back. Try to lean into a slight back bend if your low back and neck allows it. Bring your gaze up towards the sky. Slowly rise back up. Hands reach up towards the sky. Fingertips stretch, reach as high as they can. Take one more of those back bends, tee off your arms. If it's more comfortable to cactus out your arms, feel free to do so. Engage your glutes, push those hips forward as you lean back. And inhale, one more, reach tall. Hands down by your sides, just standing up straight for a moment to neutralize our spine before we forward fold. So take an inhale, hands reach out and up. Slowly take that forward fold so that we can get into those hamstrings. Take your feet a little bit wider than shoulder width apart, maybe about mat width. Grab opposite elbows and really let that upper body hang heavy. Maybe sway right to left. Again, really being self-aware of where your body holds its tension. If it's in your low back here, take a slight bend in those knees. That way it'll deepen that stretch into your back. If your hamstrings are tight, straighten those knees out and then take your forward fold. If it's a combination, just play with that slight bend in your knees and straightening. Wherever you are, just let that head hang heavy. Let it just be a natural extension of that spine. So your head follows whatever direction your shoulders and spine are swaying. Hands come down to the floor. If you need to toe heel your feet out wider to get a hand on the floor, feel free to do so. Also a great opportunity if you need a block, place one underneath your nose if your mobility prevents you from touching the floor here. Plant your right hand underneath your nose. Take an inhale, reach that left hand up high. Take your twist. Try to leave both legs straight to start here. Open up, check in with that breath. Let it be nice and smooth and even. Maybe look down at the ground, see how that feels in your neck. And also look up at the palm facing the sky, see how that feels. See which one is better for you. Bring that left hand down. So we're going to twist the same direction. This time we're going to take a bend into that right knee. Leave your left leg straight. So your knee is going to bend out over your toes, whatever direction your toes are pointing. So adjust that so when you bend that knee, it's following your toes. And then take that twist again. Notice the difference in your body. Gaze up at that hand. Look down at your fingers on the floor. And just shift it around, see what feels good. And bring both hands back to center, straighten your legs. Switch hands, left hand plants underneath your nose. Lengthen through your spine from the tip of your head to your tailbone, and then take your twist with straight legs. Again, check in with your breath, nice and smooth. Play with the gaze. And right hand comes back down to the mat, bend that left knee. Open back up into your twist. Watch which direction that knee is bending. And while you're here, maybe lengthen your spine a little bit more, lengthen your neck. Both hands come back down to the mat. Take your forward fold, grabbing opposite elbows again. Sway right to left. Hands gonna come down to the ground, toe heel your feet out just a little bit wider. Let your toes point forward or be slightly inverted, pointing towards your midline rather than outside. Take a forward fold here. You'll notice if you invert your toes, how that stretch can go into the outside of those calves. Again, playing with slightly bent knees or not. Let's toe heel those feet out a little bit wider. You're almost at max distance for that wide-legged fold here. But let those toes still be pointing in. Inhale, halfway lift. Come up to a flat back so that we can readjust and make sure we're bending from those hips as well as our shoulders. So start to hinge. Think about that hip crease here. Using those hips to fold. Then hands come down and head bows. Checking in with your breath here. Let it be smooth and easy, adding just some relaxation to this body, to your mind. Now I want you just to stay where you are, but shift your weight forward into your toes a little bit more. Then shift your weight back into your heels. Do that one more time, just noticing how that fold might change or where you feel it differently. Finding your sweet spot, and it's taking about another 30 seconds. So if you can go wider with those feet, feel free. As your muscles release, take the deepest fold that you have in you right now. Think about that tailbone lifting up towards the sky, those backs of your glutes reaching up towards the sky. All right, plant those hands, walk your feet about halfway in. Take that fold, stay hinged forward, and walk your hands over to your right foot. Hold into that right leg. Any bit, maybe that left hand can reach to the ankle, the outside of that foot. Think about taking your right hand, and it can face up towards the sky, or take a bind, reaching around to the outside of that left hip. And if you do that, let the back of your right hand be on that hip for that bind. Just opening up that shoulder, finding a twist and a fold. Holding for just another moment. And release, walk hands back to center, and when you're ready, walk them over to the left side. Again, right hand can reach to the outside of that foot or your shin. Find length and then twist. Left hand can go up towards the sky or take that bind. And as you're twisted here, fold deeper into that left leg. Slowly release that hand back to center. We're going to make our way into a tabletop in order to slowly get that head above our heart. So head is going to be in line with our heart here in tabletop, helping regulate that blood pressure. Staying in tabletop for a few moments. You can sway your hips side to side. Do whatever feels good here to release out of that stretch. Maybe hip circles. My hips are so tight today, so everything I do just like has to be very intentional. Pretty much every move I make feels like I'm stretching. So. All right, find your tabletop. Let's walk our hand, let's actually tuck our toes behind us and walk our hands back towards us. So hands might come up off the mat here. You might just stay starting to sink those hips closer to your heels to stretch out the bottom of your feet. You might be able to come all the way up, taking a little bit deeper stretch here. Let's find a few breaths. Let those toes be tucked. Then hands can come back down. We're going to untuck our toes so the tops of our feet are on the mat. Sit back down on those heels. So this might be plenty for your knees. If you do have knee pain here, I always recommend adding a towel. So I always take my blanket and you can roll it up. I already know that about halfway is my threshold for this stretch. If my knees do bother me, they've been feeling pretty good lately. I tuck that towel right into the creases behind my knees And then I sit back, and that changes the feel of this so much in my knees. It helps give a little bit of support. Blocks are also handy in this stretch, where you can just sit on a block any bit, any way to help support you. All right, to take this deeper into your knees, you can bring your hands back and start to lift those knees up off the mat. This stretches out the fronts of your feet and your ankles. Really, whatever load you feel like your body is ready for. You can do one leg at a time, just lifting one knee, then the other. Eventually, when you're feeling like you've had enough, come back into tabletop. Again, always taking time to just neutralize when we've been in those deeper stretches, especially in our joints. Even if you don't feel any pushback now, you could feel that pushback later as you do those deep joint moves. Let's tuck our toes again. Lift our hips up for down dog. Heels ground down towards the mat. You can pedal out feet here, sway hips side to side. Again, remembering we're doing this stretch class here, so down dog doesn't have to look perfect. You're looking for a stretch. If you want to take your feet wider, hands further up on the mat to get a deeper stretch into those calves, you can do that. Kind of explore your down dog here to see what kind of stretch feels good. I like to drop my heels off to the one side, push my hips up. I can really kind of start to feel this in my hip and IT bands and the outside of those calves as you drop heels over to one side. And when you're done in down dog, come back into tabletop. Let's take our child's pose. So knees mat width apart, big toes together. Let's sit back on those heels as far as we can to start. And then foreheads come down to the mat. Just let this down dog, or let this child's pose just bring ease into your body. You just hip opener and back stretch, shoulder stretch. So if you're feeling like there's not much happening in this child's pose, let's walk our fingertips towards the top of the mat so that our forearms and elbows are lifted. Ground those hands down into the mat and push your tailbone to your heels deeper. You could play with putting more weight in the right side into that hand, and then the left to deepen that shoulder stretch or back stretch. Really tiny movements here can make a big difference in child's pose. And then whatever movements you were taking, find a moment to settle. Let those elbows drop onto the mat. Just find a moment of rest. And make your way back up into tabletop. So we're going to start some leg stretches here. I'm going to turn around. Take your right leg, extend it straight behind you, and push in to that heel. It's not much of a movement, but you can roll forward and back on those toes. Just adding a little bit of mobility into that ankle, into your toes and foot. Really, there's so many bones in our feet that you really want to move them around kind of organically to get into each one. And when you're ready, take that leg, plant it forward by your thumb. So you're in this kneeling lunge. So this might feel good for you. I'm gonna walk my, let's see, my left foot is forward, my right knee is down. So I'm gonna just walk, it doesn't matter what side you're on. We're gonna do both sides. But walk the knee that's on the ground back any bit to deepen this lunge. And then bring your hands up to your front thigh. Relax those shoulders and really let your hips sink towards the ground. Then release your hand. I'm going to release my left hand down by my left side. Right hand is going to reach up overhead. Again, so whichever foot is back, whichever knee is on the ground, that's the hand you're extending up overhead. And then take a side stretch. My fingertips can kind of touch the ground on my left side here. So I take this stretch. A block is also handy in order to find a deeper side stretch here. And bring both hands down to the mat on either side of that front foot. Straighten that front leg, draw your toes back towards you. Hinging forward over your leg. So we've already stretched our hamstrings out quite a bit. So feel free to start finding these movements. I'm going to sway my hips slightly side to side, rolling on that heel in order to find those sweet spots. My hamstring, right, I'm going to say that outside hamstring, that exterior hamstring really is tight for me today. So I roll out a little bit further with those toes. And when I hinge forward, I can really feel that stretch. So do what's best in your body. It doesn't mean the fold that you're going to feel most comfortable in all the time. Where that, you know, if I just fold straight forward, my knees and nose can touch, but that's really not serving the purpose of our class today. We want to find where we're tight. We want to find where we're least flexible and work on those spots. So always that path of least resistance seems to be where it's fun to go to, but not always serving the purpose. All right, I'm going to roll my toes in for a little bit more stretch. And releasing that, coming back into my lunge. I'm going to turn here for just a moment to face you guys. We're in this lunge. I want you to bring both hands to the inside of that front foot. Drop that knee out. Starting to take this lizard stretch so that you're into that hip more than your hamstring. And you can stay up on your hands. And maybe that knee tucked in by your side is where you feel this stretch the most. And that's where you want to get into today. That knee hugging into your shoulder might be good. Dropping that knee out to the side. Again, that's the easy one for me, right? I can drop that knee out, get my elbows down on the ground, easy. It doesn't feel like I'm doing much. But if I keep my knee tucked in, work on that hip mobility, then I really start to feel that stretch. All right, come back up so you're in that kneeling lunge. I'm gonna walk my feet closer because we're gonna reach around, move this into a quad stretch on that kneeling leg. So front hand plants, you're gonna turn towards that front knee and then pull your foot back, reach back with your opposite hand, pull that foot towards you. So if you're like, yeah, that's not in my wheelhouse, you can come down to your belly Use the same hand on the same side of your body and just pull that knee in so that you're getting that quad stretch. Pushing your pelvis down into the ground. You're still going to see the same benefits from a stretch just like this than the kneeling one. Sometimes that kneeling one gets into our knees too much or what have you. As long as you're stretching that quad, you're doing great. Holding that for a couple more moments, a couple more breaths, and then we're going to release it and come back up into our tabletop. Again, feeling free to swing those hips side to side. Your neck, it can move around if you're holding tension there. And when you're ready, extend the opposite toes on the mat long. Feeling that calf stretch and ankle stretch at first, but then shifting weight forward and back any bit to get into some mobility. How are those toes able to move, the arch of your foot, expand and retract. And then come back into tabletop. Extend that opposite leg forward into a lunge. Hands come to the top of your thigh. Dropping those hips low. Taking a few breaths again, finding that best stretch for you here. Again, my left knee is forward, so I'm going to drop my left hand down by my side. Extend the right arm up. I'm going to lean towards that bent knee side. You're going to watch your breath here. If you're holding your breath or it's too choppy, kind of back out of it just a little bit. This is really one of those stretches for me that I'm like, man, do I ever stretch that muscle? Do I ever get into those hip flexors? Yes, we just all use them so much. Oh, you just start to feel some release as you hold this stretch. It feels good. All right, bring those hands back down to the mat. And start to straighten that front leg, hinging forward into a fold. Again, let's look for those stretches that are going to serve us best today. So shifting hips side to side, pulling toes back towards us. Maybe toes roll in or out. And when I say that, I mean like your big toe stretches closer to you than your pinky, or your pinky toe stretches closer than your big toe. That's what I mean by rolling. Find your sweet spot. We're gonna hold it. All right, make any last adjustments if you're going to change that stretch at all. Then let's lunge forward. Those hands both come to the inside of your front foot. Again, that knee can roll out to the side for this stretch, whatever you did on the other side. And in these moments of pause, focusing on your breath, just listening to your inhales and exhales so that your mind doesn't wander to to-do lists. And let's walk back up to that low lunge. We're going to take our quad stretch. So if you want to do that on your belly again, feel free to do that on your belly. Otherwise, hand plants. And I'm going to reach back with my left hand for my right foot. And just take that stretch into your quad. And release that foot down. And come back into a tabletop. Shift those hips side to side. And then we're going to try that child's pose one more time. So knees mat width apart, big toes together, sit back. Bring your foreheads down to the mat. And noticing any changes here and letting this child's pose just be a moment of rest. So elbows can be slightly bent, resting on the mat. And come on up to a seated spot on your mat. Cross your legs. Or just have your feet straight out in front of you, whichever is more comfortable for you. All right, place your fingertips, tent them off to the sides, and draw your left ear to your left shoulder. So we're going to play with our chin position here, rolling it down to try and tap the left shoulder. And then rolling it all the way up. Shift your gaze so that you're looking at the opposite corner away from your left shoulder. Looking to check in with that range of motion. How far can you lift that chin and gaze? So that one more time. Tuck your chin towards that shoulder. Just not drawing your shoulder up towards your chin at all. Let your shoulder still be dropping down. Shift that gaze up and away from that shoulder. Come back to center. You're going to take your left hand, wrap it behind your back, and reach for your right hip. And your right hand is going to grab, I'm going to turn around here. Your right hand is going to grab your wrist if possible. So you're sitting up straight, draw those shoulder blades together and pull that arm away from the left side. So using your right hand, we're pulling. And now I want the right ear to come towards the right shoulder. And as you're there, experiment again with your tension and where your tightness is by moving that chin just gently up and down. Once you find a spot, you're like, oh, that's tight. Hold it. And if it creates pain, back out of it. It's the time to be kind to our bodies. Trying to find openness and space for goodness. Maybe draw that chin all the way down to your chest. And release. All right, fingertips tent off on either side of you. So I'm going to bring right ear to our right shoulder. Taking that stretch to our side neck to start, and then shifting our chin towards that right shoulder. And then slowly moving your chin and gaze up to the opposite corner. Again, find that full range of motion. Maybe you can look past the midpoint. Tuck that chin towards your right shoulder one more time. And shift your gaze again in the opposite corner. You're ready, come back to center. Right arm tucks behind your back. So this is my side that I'm like, oh yeah, this shoulder really needs a good stretching out or self-care or something. When you tuck that arm behind you, left hand is going to grab your right wrist, pull that arm behind you towards your left side. This time your ear tucks to the left shoulder. And again, playing with that position of your chin and exploring every angle, every range of motion you have here. Find where that stress trigger is for you. Once you found it, hold right into it a couple moments. Tuck that chin towards your chest. And release. Hands come to those knees. Roll your shoulders out. Forward at first. And then roll them backwards. Take an inhale, hands reach tall. Find a lot of length in that spine. So grounding down with the tailbone, lengthen spine, lengthen neck, and then twist to the right, one hand in the front, one hand in the back on the mat. Keep that length in your spine. Gaze towards the back wall if your neck allows. Inhale back to center. Take a moment to reset, find that length again. So feel your sit bones. Notice all your vertebrae try to sit up taller. Lengthen your neck and then twist. I always love to use my inhales here to sit up a little taller, grounding into my fingertips. And then shift my gaze over that back shoulder. Slowly come back forward. Okay, I know we are about 45 minutes for class here. I'm going to take a couple more minutes because I really want to get into reclined cow face stretch that will do the outside of our hips, and then we will wrap up class after that. So bring your feet out in front of you. I don't know what the best way to show this. What we're going to do, we're going to lay down on our backs, but our left thigh is going to cross over our left or our right thigh. So thighs are crossing, and then you're going to reach straight down, grab those feet if possible. we get into that. So recline, thighs cross, reach straight down for the arches of your feet. If you can't reach your arches, extend your feet up a little bit, grab those shins, and pull your knees into your chest. Try to keep that head on the ground, shoulders on the ground. Again, deepening that stretch means bringing those feet out higher, hugging those knees in. Look at, I tip over. Find that sweet spot again where you can stretch that head, your shoulders on the ground. All right, hold this for a couple more breaths. Try to relax your shoulders, relax your jaw. Maybe give yourself a little smile anytime we're dealing with those hips. It's always sending love to our hips. And let's switch sides. So bring your both feet to the ground for just a moment so the blood can flow into your hips. And then cross right thigh over the left. Pull those knees towards you. And reach down for those feet. Over your shins. Pull your toes back towards your knees. And as you're here, as those hips release, start to relax into your spine and into your shoulders, your neck and jaw. Maybe tucking that chin slightly into your chest. Taking a couple more breaths here. Use an exhale to release. Bring both feet down to the mat for just a moment. If it feels good that you just want to extend your legs from there, go ahead. Or if you want to take one last little ball, nose to knees. We rock right to left. Then extending into Shavasana for just about a minute as a way to just find stillness and pause before we go about our day. Letting our body fill with oxygen and blood. Letting everything just flow freely, unrestricted. Our breath is soft. Just feel any remaining tension release from your body. Your forehead and eyes, your jaw. Your lips are slightly parted. Soft smile on your face. Just knowing that you've taken some time for yourself today and given yourself that gift. As you're ready, just making small movements in your hands and your feet. Pulling your knees into your chest. And rolling off to your side. Making your way into a seated spot on your mat. Somewhere where you want to finish your practice. And just finding length in your spine and finding softness. And then we're sitting up nice and proud, sturdy. We still have this softness and calmness across our whole body. Found some length and flexibility. Hopefully a little bit more mobile than when we began class. Let's take one inhale, reach out and up overhead. Hands come down to our heart as a way just to seal in that practice of self-care today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have an amazing afternoon. Namaste.